Long-haul driving exposes you to a multitude of strange and unsettling sights along the highway. From bizarre accidents to abandoned cars stranded in desolate locations, and people walking miles away from any sign of civilization, you quickly learn to keep your head down and avoid asking too many questions. Some of these experiences fade from memory, while others become stories shared over bad diner coffee and cold eggs. But there's one story from a cold winter night in 2021 that I've never shared, an encounter that serves as a haunting reminder to always stay vigilant on the open road. Driving long haul, you encounter a lot of strange things on the road: bizarre accidents, abandoned cars in the middle of nowhere, and people walking along highways miles from anywhere. Over time, you get used to it, learning to keep moving, keep your head down, and not ask too many questions. Half of these experiences fade away. The other half become stories you share at diners over bad coffee and cold eggs. But there's one story I never tell. It was the winter of 2021. I was driving east on I-40, about an hour outside Albuquerque, hauling construction equipment to Oklahoma City. It was late, around 1 a.m., just me, the road, and the occasional 24-hour truck stop. No headlights in my mirrors, no streetlights, just the occasional reflective sign breaking up the darkness. The radio was low. I was sipping from a half-empty can of Monster, trying to stay awake. The air was calm, that kind of night that makes you feel like the only person left on earth. Then suddenly, up ahead, I saw a pickup truck parked on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the dark. Normally, that wouldn't mean much. It could be a breakdown or a flat tire, someone needing help. But as I got closer, something caught my eye. The way my high beams hit the pavement revealed a glint, like metal reflecting back at me. I eased off the gas. The truck's hazard lights flickered, and the glint became clearer. A line of spikes stretched across the road, barely visible in the darkness. That awful pit in my stomach told me this wasn't an accident. Someone had deliberately placed those spikes. Instinct kicked in. I tapped the brakes and scanned for movement. The pickup's driver's side door was cracked open, but no one inside. That was enough. I wasn't stopping. I yanked the wheel just enough to shift into the empty oncoming lane, barely clearing the spikes. The moment my tires hit solid pavement again, I caught movement in my side mirror. Two figures burst from the ditch beside the road, sprinting toward my truck. My foot slammed on the gas. One of them held something in his hand. I couldn't tell what, but he raised it as if aiming at me. I braced for a gunshot or glass shattering, but nothing came. I sped past them, my trailer swaying from the sudden acceleration. I checked my mirrors again. They had stopped running and now stood watching me, their faces lost in shadow. The pickup truck remained on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking like a sick lure. I didn't ease up until I was a solid 10 miles down the road. Only then did I finally exhale. I pulled into the next truck stop I could find, heart hammering in my ribs. The parking lot was mostly empty, with just a few rigs parked for the night. Shaking, I grabbed my phone and called Highway Patrol. I told them everything: the pickup truck, the spikes, the men who had run at me. The dispatcher's voice was calm, almost too calm, like she had heard it all before. "We'll send a unit to check it out," she said. "What's your location?" I gave her the details, and she told me to stay put in case they needed more information. I sat in my truck for a while, watching the mirrors, waiting for that truck to come after me. But it never did. About 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the dispatcher again. "We sent a unit out," she said. "The truck is gone. No sign of spikes either." I stared out at the empty highway. Are you sure you checked the right spot? There was a long pause. Yes, we checked. And there haven't been any similar reports from that stretch of highway. That sent a shiver down my spine. What do you mean? You've never had incidents like this there? No road spikes, no ambushes. Another pause, longer this time. As far as we now know. That answer did not sit well with me. I didn't like the hesitation in her voice. Do you need anything else from me? I asked, already knowing the reassurance I saw wouldn't come. No, she said. But if you're heading east, stay alert. Those were the last words I wanted to hear. I let out a slow breath and steered past the truck stop, down the dark road. I sat there for a long time, thinking about what might have happened if I hadn't spotted the spikes. What if I had a blowout or was forced to pull over? Would they have just robbed me, or something worse? The highway stretched ahead, dark and empty, except now it didn't feel empty. It felt like something was waiting. Worse still, whatever it was had chosen that night to start. Eventually, I got back on the road and finished my route, but my mind kept replaying the moment those men sprinted toward my truck, the way they stood watching after I sped away. Most unsettling was that the pickup truck was gone when the police arrived, like it had never been there at all. For weeks after, I kept my eyes peeled for anything unusual. Every time I passed a stranded vehicle, my heart quickened and I scanned for signs of another setup. Then about a month later, at a rest stop diner, I overheard two other truckers talking about a nearly identical ambush on a different highway. Spikes on the road, fake breakdowns, masked men waiting to strike. The driver in that story wasn't as lucky. He stopped, thinking he could help, and they jumped him, taking everything, even his truck, found abandoned and stripped clean miles away. No one was ever caught. That conversation stuck with me. It made clear that there are people out there, waiting for an easy mark. Now, every time I see a car pulled over on a deserted highway, I slow down, not to stop, but to stay alert. Because on those roads, miles from anywhere, you don't always get a second chance. After reporting the frightening incident to Highway Patrol, I was met with an unexpected response. The dispatcher listened patiently as I described the pickup truck, the spikes laid out across the road, and the men who had sprinted toward me. Her tone was calm, almost unnervingly so, as if she had heard similar stories countless times before. She assured me that a unit would be sent to investigate immediately and asked for my exact location. I stayed at the truck stop, my nerves on edge, eyes constantly flicking to the mirrors, waiting for that ominous pickup to reappear. But it never did. About 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the same dispatcher. The truck was gone. No sign of the spikes either. I blinked, staring out into the dark, desolate highway. Are you sure you checked the right spot? I asked, a chill running down my spine. There was a long pause. Yes, we checked thoroughly. And there haven't been any other reports like this along that stretch of highway. What do you mean no reports? We saw everything, the spikes, the truck, the men. I insisted, my throat tightened with dread. The line remained silent a moment longer. As far as we know, there's been no previous incident of this nature. That hesitation, that absence of confirmation, it unsettled me more than the event itself. I asked if they needed anything else from me, but the dispatcher declined, only warning me to stay alert if I was continuing east. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I sat there in the cold parking lot, heart pounding, the road ahead suddenly feeling infinitely more sinister. What if I hadn't seen the spikes? What if I had been forced to stop? Whatever those men intended, they had disappeared as if they were never there at all. And that fact, more than anything, left me haunted long after the night had ended. After about 6 months on the job delivering pizzas, I had grown accustomed to the usual challenges. It wasn't the best gig, but the money was decent, and tips added a nice boost. The one thing I truly disliked, though, was the late-night shifts. There was something deeply unsettling about driving through empty streets alone in the dead of night. One such night, just past midnight, I was heading home after my last delivery. The exhaustion from my entire shift, weaving through Sacramento, weighed heavily on me. All I wanted was to get home and crash. To avoid traffic and the chaos of busy roads, I chose to take the back roads. They were quieter, with less traffic, and frankly, it was easier to avoid the local drunks and craziness on the main streets. About 10 minutes into my drive, I noticed headlights behind me. Initially, it didn't seem odd. Back roads aren't busy, so any car tends to stand out, but something about this driver's behavior put me on edge. The car was too close, almost tailgating me. I tapped my brakes lightly as a polite way to say, "Back off." Instead of easing up, the car moved even closer. Annoyed but trying to stay calm, I shifted into the right lane, expecting the vehicle to pass me. Instead, it matched my speed, never trying to overtake. Peering into my rearview mirror, I couldn't see the driver's face due to the glaring headlights, but I could feel their presence, intense, deliberate. Assuming it might just be an impatient driver or someone being reckless, I pushed my speed up to 55 miles per hour. The car followed suit, never letting up. My heart rate quickened as the situation grew stranger and more unnerving. Reaching for my phone, still in the cup holder, I hesitated. What would I even say if I called 911? "Someone's driving too close" sounded unreliable in this context. Suddenly, the car swerved aggressively into my lane, cutting me off. Instinctively, I jerked the wheel, tires screeching as I swerved onto the shoulder. My heart pounded fiercely. The vehicle didn't speed ahead afterward. Instead, it slowed and moved in front of me, crawling along at only 30 miles per hour. Panic was setting in. I needed to escape. I took a deep breath and tried to plot a course to a busier area, hoping to lose this driver in traffic or at least find some help. But when I hit the brakes hard to avoid colliding with the car in front, it just sat there. No lights, no signals, no movement. Frustrated and fearful, I threw the car into reverse, swerved violently into the opposite lane, and barely dodged a direct collision. The other driver's headlights flashed on aggressively. Moments later, they charged toward me at full speed. I didn't stop to think. I slammed on the gas, tires skidding as I pulled off sharply onto a side road. The turn was so tight, I nearly lost control, but managed to keep my balance. The Predator vehicle followed, closing in relentlessly. Out in the middle of nowhere, empty fields stretching for miles, no streetlights, no houses, there was nowhere to hide. My hand shook, clutching the steering wheel, adrenaline flooding my veins as I fought to keep control. Checking the rearview mirror over and over, hoping to see the car turn off, but it persisted, gaining ground steadily. Desperation took over. I veered left sharply. Finally, I passed the car for the first time in what felt like an eternity, and my heart took a momentary break. Without slowing down, I kept speeding through the back roads for another 20 minutes until I reached the main road. Shaken, my hands were clammy as the headlights appeared ahead of me once more. The car had pulled into a driveway as if none of this had happened. Curious, albeit cautious, I slowed to glance at the driver, a middle-aged man wearing a jacket, looking perfectly ordinary, no horror movie villain or monster. When he turned toward me, though, he offered a slow, knowing smile, the kind that made it clear he'd won some twisted game. I didn't wait to see what was next. I hit the gas and drove as fast as I dared to get away. To this day, I don't know why he did it. Maybe it was some warped thrill, or maybe he was seeking an easy victim. But that night taught me one thing: some people simply enjoy watching you panic. And that smile, that slow, deliberate grin, stays etched to my mind, a chilling reminder that sometimes the danger you can't see is the most terrifying of all. Kansas stretches wide and flat, its highways seemingly endless under the sprawling sky. It was early March 2020, the world beginning to feel a little uneasy, and I was driving home after visiting a friend in Colorado. The roads were almost empty, the night cool, and my fuel tank dangerously low. I'd passed a few truck stops earlier, but kept telling myself to push just a little farther to the next one. That decision nearly cost me. Out here in the middle of nowhere, with my phone flickering between one bar and no signal at all, I spotted a small, rundown gas station just off the highway. Its neon sign buzzed weakly, flickering between open and a garbled mess. No other cars were parked outside, and a place like this usually wouldn't inspire confidence, but I had no choice. Pulling onto the cracked gravel, the station had two ancient pumps and a tiny convenience store attached, dimly lit and faded from years of neglect. I saw a lone attendant behind the counter, an older man with graying hair and tired eyes. He didn't greet me, just watched as I approached. I asked to fill up, and in a low, flat voice, he told me simply, "Get back in your car and leave." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard him right. When I looked again, there was no humor in his gaze, only a grave warning. Before I could respond, I noticed movement behind the station, two shadows stepping into the faint glow of a security light. They hadn't been there moments ago. One was tall and stocky, clad in a dirty flannel, the other thinner, with a hood pulled up over his head. I felt my stomach knot. Frank, the attendant, took a step forward and whispered just enough for me to hear, "Don't stay." That was all I needed. I dashed to my car, fumbling with my keys, as the tall figure advanced confidently across the lot. Slamming the door, I locked it tight just as headlights flickered on, revealing their faces, expressionless, watching. The tall man slammed his hand against my window in one forceful strike. I screamed, slamming the gear into reverse and whipping the car backwards, nearly grazing the second man, who didn't flinch. I shifted into drive and floored it, the gas station blurring behind me. Frank standing by the door under the weak light, his face grim as if he'd seen this countless times before. I didn't stop for almost 40 miles, finally pulling into a well-lit station under the watchful eye of security cameras, trying to stay my trembling hands. A call to the local sheriff confirmed my fears. There had been reports, but every time officers checked, the men were gone without a trace. Frank was likely just trying to warn travelers, but how many ignored him and paid the price? That night became a haunting reminder. Sometimes, the safest choice is to listen quietly and leave immediately. Working as an Uber driver at night usually meant a calm, uneventful shift, fewer drunks than expected, decent fares, and quiet roads. I'd been doing it a while, mainly driving passengers to and from the airport and picking up late-night bar crowds or early morning workers. But that one night changed everything. The trip started like any other. A pickup request came just before midnight in Boise. A man heading home from a business trip got in, no small talk, just a quick, "How's your night?" before zoning out on his phone. His drop-off was in a rural area, far beyond the usual city routes, quiet neighborhoods surrounded by open land, no streetlights, barely any houses. A place where, if you screamed, You'd have to hope someone was outside to hear. As I pulled away from his driveway onto the main road, I noticed a sedan about 20 yards ahead moving slowly. At first, I assumed they were lost or searching for a turnoff, so I switched lanes to pass. Suddenly, the sedan swerved sharply right in front of me, forcing me to slam on the brakes. The road was too narrow to get around, so I stayed put watching. The sedan paused briefly, then inched forward again. I gave it some space, thinking maybe it was a drunk or confused driver. I carefully moved back into the left lane, but again, the sedan cut me off. At that point, I was alert. The sedan had no Uber sticker, no company logos, and no damage that would mark it as junk. Just a plain, dark-colored car. I couldn't see the driver clearly, just a shadow inside. I checked my rearview mirror. Nothing behind me. Completely alone on this stretch of road. I backed off a bit, leading some distance, and wasn't in any rush to get ahead. But then it stopped, right in the middle of the road. Not at a stop sign, no hazards on, no apparent reason. My gut tightened with unease. I kept my foot poised on the brake, expecting the driver to step out or wave me down for help or to fake a breakdown. No one came out. Flashing my high beams didn't prompt a reaction. Then the sedan's reverse lights blinked on. Alarmed, I immediately threw my car into reverse, putting space between us. The sedan lingered a few seconds, then suddenly took off, speeding away. I exhaled, relief washing over me. I thought maybe I had just been overreacting to a strange driver trying to get rid of a tailgear. But just 2 miles down the road, the sedan appeared again. It was stopped right in the middle of the road, the same cold silence surrounding it. No hazards, no turn signals, just waiting. Fumbling, I pulled up the Uber app to share my location, but of course, there was no service. The fields and open farmland stretched out on either side. No houses, no lights, just darkness. I wasn't about to stop. This time, I hit the gas. As I accelerated past the sedan, it shot forward alongside me. I swerved to pass, and it swerved too. I honked loudly, heart pounding, realizing this wasn't some coincidence. They were toying with me. I slammed on the brakes again, laying them inch ahead slowly, as if waiting for me to make a move. Then, without warning, the sedan pulled a sharp right onto a side road. No signal, no hesitation. I hit the accelerator, desperate to put distance between us. The next gas station was 4 miles ahead. If I could just reach it. But then, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. The sedan was back, closing fast. Panic surged in my chest. Was this a robbery? A carjacking? Some twisted predator? None of those options ended well for me. I floored it, pushing my car, far from a high-performance vehicle, to its limits. The sedan stayed right behind me. No horns, no flashing lights, just unrelenting pursuit. The road curved ahead, with a gas station sign glowing dimly in the distance. My chance. I swerved into the lot, tires screeching. The sedan barreled past, ignoring the station, disappearing down the road. I sat frozen for a moment, hands gripping the wheel, forcing my breath to slow. Inside, the clerk barely looked up, probably expecting another drunk guy buying cigarettes. But his expression shifted when he saw me. "You okay, man?" he asked. I turned toward the windows, and my stomach dropped. The sedan was back, creeping along the roadside, slowly rolling past the station. I stepped further inside, out of view. The clerk frowned. "Dude," I raised a hand, signaling him to wait as the sedan passed. Its windows were pitch black beneath the station lights. I finally got a clear look at the driver, a middle-aged man smiling. Not an evil grin, but a slow, knowing smile, like he was certain I'd understand. I didn't move until the car was out of sight. The clerk let out a low whistle. "That guy with you?" I shook my head, voice shaking. "No, me too," I admitted. I stayed inside for nearly an hour, watching the road. The sedan never came back. Eventually, I pulled myself together and drove home, taking a different route. Now, every time I drive those lonely roads, I wonder, was it random? Or had they picked me on purpose? And if I hadn't gotten away, what would have happened next? These chilling experiences on the open road serve as powerful reminders to remain vigilant and trust your instincts, especially during late-night travels through isolated areas. The highway can conceal dangers that lurk unseen until it's too late. Staying alert and cautious can make all the difference between a narrow escape and becoming a victim. Remember, sometimes it's better to keep moving and be safe than to stop and take unnecessary risks. Stay safe out there, and always listen to that inner voice that warns you when something feels wrong. If these stories have you rethinking your late-night drives, please like this video and share it with someone who could use a reminder to stay vigilant on the road. It might just save a life. Have you ever faced a frightening encounter while driving? Share your experience in the comments below or email me. I'd love to include your story in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another chilling tale. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember, some roads are best left untraveled. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.